And you're back here on Open. Darren Jaime here with you. Our next guest is no stranger to Open. He's here to break down the latest stories from around the world. We welcome now our political analyst and SUNY Maritime Professor Mark Myritz, and we welcome him to the show. Good to see you.
Hello, Darren.
I know it's been a while between you and I.
But
I know you've been here. I haven't.
I missed you. I missed you.
I know. Good to have you here.
Okay, same here.
Let's catch up. Let's talk first of all latest political news coming out of Let's Go International, talking about Israel and Hamas. Please bring us up to date.
Well, there's a ceasefire now. And there's been a raging conflict. Really the entire Middle East is on fire, unfortunately, all the way from Iraq to Lebanon to Syria to Gaza, upheavals and destruction, with no end in sight. Mm-hmm. The ceasefire is a good development, but who knows what will happen next.
A lot of people not optimistic about the ceasefire, knowing it took a lot of political push and international draw to get to the place of a ceasefire. How optimistic are we that both sides will be able to continue, just even in a 72-hour ceasefire?
Right. I think the basis for optimism is good because Israel has completed its goal, its stated goal, to destroy the terror tunnels. What Hamas was doing was basically taking the concrete that it could have used for building schools and shelters and used it to build terror tunnels, some of which have actual lighting and phone lines, extraordinary. And using that for the ability to create attacks on Israel. Israel has destroyed those tunnels, and that was their goal. Of course, in the meantime, there was shelling and killing on both sides, which was very, very destructive, and the whole world was in an uproar about it.
Optimistic?
I'm optimistic that the ceasefire will hold for now, but the question is what happens down the road. I mean, will Hamas now use this opportunity, this lull, to rearm itself, to reorganize itself, to launch further attacks, or is it going to disarm militarily? That is the question. There are negotiations that are going to be undertaken between Hamas and in Egypt with Palestinian Authority head Mahmoud Abbas, with the United States, with Israel, and hopefully they can work something out. But Hamas is divided into a political wing and a military wing. The political wing may make a negotiation, but the military wing wants to fight on. If it wants to fight on, there will continue to be a fight and there won't be an end in sight. So I'm cautiously optimistic and hopeful for peace. But down the road, long term, I think it's unlikely that this will stabilize, to be very candid.
Let's talk a little bit down the pike, a little bit, talking Washington, D.C. President Obama under fire, literally, and also under sue. House of Representatives considering suing President Obama. Much conflict about the President of the United States actually being under suit. Will this help in the midterm elections? Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the idea of the House of Representatives suing the president is one of the great follies. It's ridiculous. It doesn't have any foundation in law, really. I mean, if the House and the Senate don't like the president, they have the right of impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. I don't see any high crimes and misdemeanors here. The president, as he said, I'm doing my job. He does his job. The House does they do their job. The Senate does their job. I think that the idea of spending money in a lawsuit and organizing the House into a lawsuit is absolutely absurd. Now, what you have in Washington is complete dysfunctionality. The government's not functioning. The House passes bills against Obamacare. It passes bills to sue the president. The Senate passes bills. Nobody passes anything except a few things together, and there's no bipartisanship whatsoever. I would also add that one observation, in my opinion, is that the president and the Secretary of State and administration is way too stretched too thin with too many things that they have on their plate right now. Meaning that the Middle East is falling apart. The Russians and the Ukrainians shot a plane out of the sky, but the president and the Secretary of State are at a business summit. Or they are greeting people from very minor countries. I have nothing against the minor countries. I have nothing against countries in Latin America and Asia. I don't have anything against them. But the President and the Secretary of State should be in the Situation Room working on the spread of ISIS, for example. ISIS in Iraq has now attacked in Lebanon. It's also attacking the Kurdish fighters. The whole area is literally falling apart, but the President and the Secretary of State seem distracted with other issues. Now, what you have is a distracted president who's a lame duck president in his second term. You have a Congress that does not function. They can't talk to each other. The other day, for example, Nancy Pelosi ran across the Congress, I don't know if you saw this, to chastise a Republican for his awful comments. I mean, the whole government leadership is absent. And it's very regretful because the world is in big trouble. And honestly, I've been very candid about it. I'm worried about it from A to Z.
Let's go to midterm elections for a moment. The midterm elections are coming up. You talk about the president being a lame duck president.
Yes.
With the GOP deciding to go ahead and the idea of suing the president.
Right.
Is this going to be a backfire
I
that
think
can result in the election?
I think it's somewhat of a backfire. I think they'll take the House. The question is the Senate. The Senate is up, and it's really pure demographics. And it's also the Tea Party. And the problem for the Republican Party, having the Tea Party kind of, biting at their legs and saying, if you're not a true Republican, I'm not going to support you. And the Eric Cantor scenario is a good example. There you have the majority leader of the House defeated in a primary. I mean, the whole thing is falling apart. So I think you're right, it's a distraction, but whether or not it's going to overwhelm the Republicans, I don't know. I think the Obama health care point that they make is very strong, but bringing this lawsuit, I think most Americans don't understand it. Lawyers don't even understand. I'm a lawyer. I don't even understand it. I teach constitutional law, and I do not understand the idea of spending money and time and effort to sue the president. We have something called separation of powers. The president runs the government. There is a legislature, they make laws. I mean, if they don't like the president, they think they accuse him of high crimes and misdemeanors, which is idiotic, then they should bring on an impeachment. They keep talking about that. They're going to impeach the president. If they have no basis to do it, then they should just do their job, get together, try to pass some bills, work with the president instead of suing the president, which means you're basically shutting the whole operation down, which is foolish and doesn't get anything accomplished whatsoever.
One of the things President Obama was looking forward to probably in his second term as president was dealing with the immigration crisis.
Exactly.
That has definitely unfolded right now into no accomplishment whatsoever.
That's right.
We still have the challenges at the border. Where do we see this going?
It's not going anywhere. I think that basically the president had, his point about the dreamers, and he had his point about doing something on immigration. Similarly, he had something that he wanted to do on gun control. He spoke beautifully at a number of these sessions about gun control and passionately. But what happened? The legislature didn't help him. The Congress didn't help him. The NRA interfered. And similarly on immigration, you have, again, the lack of bipartisanship, and you have the fight between Republicans and Democrats on immigration, which, candidly, Darren, is a big issue for the next election. They're looking forward. They see this as a hot issue. So, again, dysfunctionality in the Congress, can't get anything accomplished. I commend the president for trying to do something on it, but he's just hitting a brick wall here because the Congress is just not. And they basically punted it and adjourned, and that was the end of it. Gone. And they're coming back in September. Ridiculous.
With the president being that lame duck president now, most eyes of Americans are who's going to be the next president. Right. The question now is Hillary Clinton, and she hasn't said anything formally, but everybody's certainly looking to see whether or not she will be a candidate from your perspective.
Will she or won't she? Hillary Clinton, that was like this to be a commercial. Does she or doesn't she? I don't know. I mean, Hillary Clinton, a lot of doubt about it. I'm reading her book. Her book didn't do very well. The Clintons are coming under a lot of scrutiny right now about their foundation and how they raise money and so forth. And Chelsea Clinton, this whole family operation, I don't know. The Clinton baggage from previously has been largely overlooked. Maybe it'll come up again if she runs. She may have some challenges on the left from Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is a very impressive person. And also on the right. And you see that Rand Paul, I know it sounds absurd, is trying to run for president, but I heard him. I was in the Senate and I heard him speak, and I know he's no slouch. So there are a couple people out there that might be candidates, and they were even talking about Romney making a comeback, which is, again, the odd part of American politics. Could be. So, let's not prognosticate, but I think if I were a betting man, I would think she would run. This is her life goal. Hillary Clinton's life goal is to be president. And honestly, she's perfectly qualified to be president. At the end of the day, it's going to be political decision-making, whether or not the Democrats or Republicans are going to overwhelm one another. And a lot of it has to do with, even if Hillary becomes president, how does the Senate and the House look? And who runs the House and the Senate? And that has to do with apportionment and the redistricting, and that's the key to American politics. Who controls the legislature and who draws those lines? And the president then can end up like President Obama, stuck with a dysfunctional Congress. So I'm hoping that whoever wins this election in 2016 can work with a Congress that will be pliant and helpful to the president to get the president's agenda through, which certainly this Congress has not helped President Obama despite his best efforts and best intentions.
To be continued. Mark Myritz, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You can catch more of Mark. He'll be on Perspectives as well, and you'll catch him here also on Open, bringing us political commentary. Got to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll find out how the Bronx is improving. We want you to know, so stay tuned. Coming up right after this.